Second update. I didn't sleep Saturday night and went to work at 7 a.m. Sunday and a daze. I tried to talk to Jesse, but Mark exploded the minute I walked in the door. Jesse herded him into another room, but the walls were thin and I heard him screaming over and over.
I don't want any of you fuckers in my house.
I left the second my shift ended. Jesse stayed behind to work another double. At home, I drank an entire pot of coffee, but fell asleep anyway. I dreamed of baby Caroline and woke up drenched in sweat. It was 6 in the evening. I showered and dressed, then made more coffee. I didn't check my phone or computer. I knew I'd look up William Hyde and didn't trust myself with whatever information I'd find. I still wanted to talk to Jesse, so at 10:30 I drove to the house, parked across the street, and waited. Jesse finally emerged at 11:45, looking exhausted. Mark ran out after him.
Hey, wait, you guys see my car?
Mark loves building model cars and loves showing them off. If Jesse isn't available, he'll present his cars to the wall, but he'll speak loudly, making sure I can hear. Jesse was suitably impressed as Mark showed off his model truck. Finally, he clapped Jesse on the back and darted back inside. Once the door shut, Jesse withered and shuffled down the street. I got out of my car and he noticed immediately. I could practically see him wavering. Run or wait? But he's Jesse, so he didn't just wait. He walked over to my car. Is this about yesterday?
Yeah.
Jesse stared down at the asphalt, silent for so long I didn't know what to think. Let's talk in the car. I got in. He dithered outside for several minutes. I thought he was going to run off, but finally he slid into the passenger side, wiping his eyes. He drew a hitching breath and said, I call them painted dreams. Before yesterday, they looked like actual paintings, not cartoons. I've had them as long as I can remember. It's not just Caroline, it's pretty much everyone. His voice broke. Dread and suffocating sadness mingled with horror. I was going insane after 3 days and he'd been having them every night all his life?
What are they?
I don't know. Memories? Visions? He pressed himself against the window. It's my fault. When I fell asleep the other night, I was dreaming it. What you saw with Caroline, it must have been printed on the tape somehow.
Then everyone would see it, not just us.
His voice shook. Then I don't know. You're my only friend. We're close. Maybe that's it? I don't know. He bit his lip as his face crumpled. I'm sorry. I wanted to comfort him, but didn't know how. Until this point, he'd been a great coworker and casual friend. That he considered us close broke my heart. He took a deep breath, clearly struggling to calm himself down. It's just the tape, right? You haven't seen it anywhere else? I hesitated. His voice immediately shrilled with panic. Are you dreaming about it?
Yes.
I admitted. He leaned over, resting his elbows on his knees and covered his face. When he finally looked up, his face was swollen and blotchy. Did you see anything else? That small, bone-thin creature with the glowing static skin filled my mind's eye.
Why?
So that's a yes?
Does it matter?
Yes. If it comes back, don't listen to it.
I didn't see.
He suddenly snapped. You don't need to lie, all right? Mortification replaced the upset and he covered his face briefly before settling back into his seat. You don't need to. Not to me. I apologized and asked,
Do you know what it is?
His internal struggle was almost palpable. I'm not sure.
Did it ever talk to you?
All the time, and I listened. The horror must have been apparent on my face because he continued quickly. Once, when I was a kid, it didn't work and I'm still paying for it. He paused. I know you want to listen. I still do too, but it's not worth it. I didn't answer. You'll get used to the dreams. I'll help you. If you want. If you think I can, if you want support, I'm here. I heard him, but thoughts of him and Caroline consumed me. The horror they'd experienced, the pain they suffered, anger surged through me, heavy and electric. You only dream about people you know. It's good because there's no mystery. You can see that they're okay, that they're safe.
So are the people who hurt them.
I know, but you can't change it or do anything about it. Dreams aren't evidence, so you have two choices. You can give in, give up your freedom, and risk your life for revenge that isn't even yours, or you can live with it. He exhaled slowly. Here's the question I had to ask. Is it harder to live as a witness than as a victim? He kept talking. I wasn't as attentive as I should have been, and didn't catch his last sentence. I only sensed the tension after.
What?
I asked. He looked miserable. I haven't had a painted dream since we watched that movie together. The implication wasn't lost. He transferred this curse to me. The thought of enduring these dreams, not just about him and Caroline, but everyone else too, made me want to scream. Instead, I cried. Other than skittish shoulder tapping, Jesse's never touched me, so it was a shock when he pulled me into a hug. He tried to soothe me, but ended up weepy himself. That made it much worse. All I could see was his 10-year-old self crying over a dead body in those lush, dreamy woods. I couldn't stand it. I told him it wasn't his fault, but I needed to be alone. I don't think he believed me, but I wasn't lying. I don't blame him. I'm actually glad he has a reprieve. I don't want to be that reprieve, but at least he's free. I went home, cried more, and slept. I had an animated dream, a painted dream, of Jesse. He was older, 12 maybe, sitting in a dark barn. Shafts of sunlight spilled through holes in the roof, creating a soft spotlight. Dust motes drifted in the air like tiny fairies. No. His child voice was choked with tears. If you don't, he'll find more. A soft, familiar hiss issued from the shadows. And more, and more. There will always be more. He shook his head violently. You're going to be like him. Every time he kills one, it comes closer. That's why he makes you watch, so that you become him. Jesse screamed, I'm not like him! You're close. You think about it. You dream about it. Soon, you'll want to do it. A familiar, inhumanly thin shape flickered in the shadows. Not static this time, but living paint. Swirling swaths of rich oil color dancing all over. No! Jesse shot to his feet. I will never want to! That's a lie. The painted phantom stepped in front of him. Sunlight made it breathlessly beautiful. And you know it. The barn door creaked open, spilling soft light into the darkness. Tools glinted on the nearest wall. Pitchfork, axe, saws, shovels. The painted phantom melted into the shadows as the man entered. Blood and mud caked his naked body like he'd crawled out of a bog. That was a mental image I didn't want. A murderer submerging himself like a crocodile until a victim came along. He pulled the axe off the wall and went to Jesse, who looked up at him with mingled horror and defiance. I couldn't see the man's face. Sun hit the back of his head, casting his features into stark, blank shadow. He had hair like Jesse, though, coarse and black, falling in haphazard waves down his neck. He put a large, muddy hand on Jesse's shoulder and steered him outside. Jesse looked back fearfully as the painted creature flickered in the darkness. The man slammed the door and Jesse began to scream. I was prettier then, hissed a soft voice in my ear. But that's because he sees beauty even when there is none. Not like you. The static phantom stood at my side, regarding his multicolored doppelganger. When it spoke to me, it broke a paralysis I hadn't even recognized. In these dreams, I'm a numb, invisible witness with no thoughts or feelings until I wake. Being dragged into sentience was like being doused in cold, slimy oil. The shock of it almost woke me up, catapulting me into an in-between space. I could see my room, but the barn's colorful walls replaced my own. Did you listen? The phantom's faint luminescence caused strange shadows to play across the blankets. Are you angry?
I didn't find him.
My throat was so dry that the words issued in a broken hiss.
I didn't try.
No one tries at first, so I will show you. I will help you. It began to play with my hair. Small shocks and bursts of static stung my scalp. Sharp fingers dug into my skin and bored delicately into my skull. Then the phantom started to pull. It was both pain and relief. like draining a pressurized wound and pulling the last slimy vestiges of infection from the cavity. It came out in a wet, glittering rope. Blurry images flickered across it. Baby Caroline, then the clown man, and all the hideous things that followed. Finally, with a soft, wet pop and a glorious release of pressure, the root of the rope detached and fell beside me. The specter held the rope up for my inspection. Your dreams will show you where to go. You just have to let them out. I threw the rope across the room. Impossibly, fantastically, the rope spread and stretched, wider than my bed, wider than my room, wider than the barn. It crept up the walls and closed off overhead, forming a tunnel. Every surface, walls, ground, ceiling, played Caroline's horrific abuse. An endless tunnel of cartoon horrors. Don't be afraid. The static creature touched my shoulder. Electricity snapped and popped. Be angry. Follow the path you made. And suddenly, I was angry, enraged. Seeing these things was horrible, but Jesse was right. I was just a bystander. So how much worse must it be for Caroline? Poor Caroline, abandoned with no family and no one to love her. Caroline, who had to endure it and suffer the endless aftermath alone. Fury burned, eclipsing and finally extinguishing fear. I gave in and followed my path. Every image of Caroline broke my heart, and every sight of the clown man made me so mad I could have thrown up or screamed. But neither of those were beneficial. Energy was beneficial. Speed was beneficial. So I redirected that energy and ran. Soon enough, a house appeared at the end of the tunnel. It had threadbare carpet and stained walls. A battered poker and brush sat before a dark fireplace. The tunnel followed me, enveloping the entire house as I checked the rooms, kitchen, bathroom, den, and finally, a familiar, dreary bedroom. Even after all these years, a single lamp lit the room. An old man curled on the bed like a baby, tiny and withered, and as I drew closer, the clown face superimposed over his features, and I knew. I tiptoed back to the living room and grabbed the poker. He brutalized Caroline, so I brutalized him. I made him bleed and break and squall. He was old and fragile, so I expected him to die quickly, but he didn't die at all. He kept screaming, kept flailing, kept begging for his life. Finally, I gave up and hurled the bloody poker at the wall and stalked away. The static specter came loose like a flood and spilled over the clown. Slowly, it diminished the body. When nothing remained, the phantom bled back into itself. Go back, it said. The tunnel was blank now. Some of it was that empty grayness of a dead tube TV. Some of it was static, lighting my way home. I entered my room and saw myself sleeping restlessly. The room started to spin and I woke up, alone on my bed in a dark room. Horror and disgust overwhelmed me, and I wept for hours. The static creature returned eventually.
Did I really kill him?
I croaked. He died in his sleep, dreaming of you. It's sick, but I felt much better after that. Well enough, at least, to ask another question.
Why me?
Curses are living things, it answered. Love and hate create them. Love and hate transfer them.
Who hates me?
No one. But lonely boys love easily. This made me cry again, long past the point of exhaustion. When I finally finished, the phantom crawled down. I have another name for you. I wanted to tell it no, but I was too tired, already half asleep. It swept damp hair from my forehead. Earl Koenig. Now rest. Earl Koenig's name followed me into sleep. When I woke a few hours later, I felt clean, purged, with only the faintest memories of Caroline's abuse. I didn't feel angry, didn't even feel sad, just cleansed. I went to work with a literal bounce in my step. I wasn't late, but Jesse was already there, working on a model truck with Mark. His warm composure shattered when he saw me. Mark noticed.
Fuck, did this shit that fucking ruin everything?
He swept the model off the table. Small pieces skittered across the linoleum as he stormed away. We waited in tense, painful silence. Finally, Jesse asked, "How were you last night?" I hesitated. Was he asking about the clown man? But how could he possibly know? So I took a chance and lied.
I just didn't sleep.
Jesse's face twisted. I'll leave you alone. Don't worry about doing anything today. Just relax if you can. His words were uniquely heartbreaking. No one had ever helped him, but his first instinct was to help me. And what had I done in return? Kicked him out of my car for trying to comfort me. When I went over and hugged him, he returned it without hesitation, holding on like I was a life raft.
What the fuck?
Mark stood in the doorway, apoplectic.
Don't do that fucking shit in my fucking house.
I stepped away quickly. It was just a hug. Jesse soothed. We would never disrespect you. And if that made you feel disrespected, we won't do it again. Your house, your rules, 100%. Watching Jesse calm Mark, seeing the empathy and understanding in every movement made my heart hurt. The thought of his past, of his pain, sparked a burning, dangerous pressure in my chest. More anger. It kept building even after Caroline found me. We played Go Fish for hours, with ridiculous cheating on both sides. Watching her silliness, her joy made me happy, but it didn't kill the rage. And that's okay, because Jesse's last name is Koenig. I don't know who Earl is, but I can't wait to meet him, in his dreams or otherwise.
And cut. Fantastic scene, guys. I think we have a successful story on our hands.
I'd like to thank Dopabeane for writing these stories. This is iStalkTheDawn. This is the third installment of Childhood Movie. And if you guys like it, please like it, subscribe to it, and share it. Because sharing is caring. And I care about you. Please support me in my run for presidency, 2020.
I don't actually want to be president.